there. Welcome back to Ask Amy. Today's question is one that I don't have in written form to read to you like I typically do. It's a question that came from a series of conversations, written conversations I was having with someone who wanted an Ask Amy about this, really needed some support in seeing through this, but didn't want her name understandably associated with this, and we just didn't get to like writing out a question. We were just talking about it. But I would love to take this opportunity to speak more to her question and what she's going through, because it's so incredibly common, and everything we suffer with becomes more and more easy to just see as this innocent misunderstanding that's creating our suffering. But this one may be especially so, situations like this. So essentially, and it's a little bit sensitive, so just kind of hold it loosely as you're listening. Essentially, she said that she's dealing with some intrusive thoughts, right? This intrusive thought thing, I'm in the middle of creating a whole bunch of stuff, a whole bunch of helpful content around this. There's people in the school with it. It's all the time, right? These thoughts, and I created a podcast around it. These thoughts that just by the fact that we call them intrusive, we know they're not us, but they're extreme, and then they become loud and they become emotional, and we get afraid of them. And this misunderstanding about a thought turns it into something that just feels like this gigantic real problem that we have to deal with. So I feel like this is just coming out of the woodwork lately, of people all over the place saying, I had these intrusive thoughts, and how can you say these aren't real? And they're this and they're that, and they're loud and they're all about me. And, and it's so easy for me to see, they're not in my head, but it's so easy for me to look at that with someone else and see, yeah, you're just thinking like everybody else. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing different about you, but you're taking what you're thinking, and there's a whole bunch of thinking that's like holding it in place. That's like thinking about what you're thinking and what it means and all of this. So this particular person had a sexual thought feeling thing at the same time as she was seeing something related to one of her children. And that the pairing of these things was so shocking and not okay and not normal to her, because it's not who she is, mind you, because it doesn't make any sense to pair those feelings and thoughts with what she saw. It makes no sense at all. It's not who she is. It's not anything she's interested in, but they were paired together because she's a human being with a brain, and that's what brains do. And ever since the pairing of those thoughts and feelings with this image that she was looking at the time, it's been downhill from there, because her mind is just going, what does this mean? And why are you thinking that? And I can't believe you would think that. And that's not who I am. And I would never. And all of that stuff, right? Now, just a little bit of very vague detail I just gave, you can see how this can happen so easily, right? So incredibly easily. It happens to people all the time, where we have a thought or feeling, and maybe our physical eyes, or we're taking in sensory information that's about something else. And again, this is just the way the computer in our head works. It's just the way a brain works. It means nothing about who you are or what you like or what you want or how you feel. None of that. It couldn't be less about that. It's literally like, I don't know why this just came to mind, but I used to play that game Memory with my kids. You know how you turn over all the tiles and you have to pick over one and you try to find the match, and you have to try to remember, because you look at a bunch that are wrong, you try to remember where it is. It's like if you flipped over the elephant in Memory and then you flip over the wagon, it's like thinking that suddenly you're obsessed with elephants and wagons. No, no, it's just what showed up. It'd be like if your brain says, elephants belong in wagons, you better go find some elephants and wagons. No, it doesn't mean anything about that. It's just random pictures and words and images and maybe thoughts and feelings that get kind of mashed together. That's all it is. That's all it is. It means nothing beyond that. And we all have so much of this. We smell a certain scent and all of a sudden we have these memories. And, there's just so many examples of this. So that's all she's going through. But what happens is that because her mind is now so hypervigilant to any trace of a thought like this, any trace of any, like a memory or an image or anything that smacks of that pairing that freaked her out to begin with, she's so hypervigilant for it. She's like on high alert, even when she's relaxed, when she thinks she is. Just that's what beliefs do, right? That's what fear does. So it's like everything in her mind is like, oh my gosh, I sure hope that doesn't happen. I sure hope that thought leaves me alone today. And these are the words she's saying to herself, and not just her. Again, I see this all the time. I sure hope it doesn't show up. Oh my gosh, what does it mean? A huge, huge, huge feature of when people are suffering with intrusive thoughts like this is there's so many questions about why. Constantly. Why? Why is this happening? What does this mean? Why did this happen? Why did I think that? What does it mean? Why is it still here? If this isn't my thought, why does it keep showing up? Why is a gigantic thing to look out for. Because here's the thing about why. Your mind is trying to put meaning to something that has no meaning. Now, when our mind tries to attach meaning to something that has no meaning, it'll keep trying. And to keep trying, it needs to keep bringing up this image and the memories of it and the thoughts about it and the opinions about it, and then try to spin some kind of sensical answer out of it. And it's really hard to do because there isn't one. So it'll come up with, well, because you're a criminal, because there's something wrong with you. Like, it'll come up with anything. But that's just a mind that's trying to find something where there's nothing. And we wonder why these intrusive thoughts won't leave us alone. That's what people say, right? It won't leave me alone. Well, that's because your mind's constantly out there trying to solve this why riddle as if it's something that has an answer and it makes some sense. And so your mind is vigilant. It's like having a million antennas up working, like just grabbing anything they can grab that kind of resembles this, and then trying to spin a picture, trying to spin a story of it. You see that? Like, we just become so attuned to anything. So of course we see it all over the place. You can't not. Like, you can't not see evidence for it and call it intrusive and say that it's always around and it's so habitual, when on some level you think it's so meaningful and real and you need to get to the bottom of it, that your mind is always on high alert for it, always looking for it. So I just really, really want you to see if you can get a feel for how our brain really is like playing that game of memory. I really like that. That just came up as I was sharing this. But it's like you flip over a card, you flip over another card. They don't mean anything about each other. You're playing a game. Like, that's how a brain works. All kinds of stuff comes up. Some of it gets paired together. Some of it gets smushed together. It doesn't mean anything. But if we come in and try to make sense and give meaning and think everything's personal about what our brain is spitting out, we're going to be there every single time. And this is the root of pretty much every habit, because otherwise you might have a bad day and go drink too much or eat too much or smoke something or buy something, and okay, you cope. Yeah, that's what looked to you to do to cope in a moment. But that's not how it goes, right? We think, oh my gosh, now I have a drinking problem and a smoking problem and a shopping problem. And then again, we're hypervigilant for it. Our mind's looking, where? Oh my gosh, you had a thought about drinking. Oh, you really do have a problem. Like, and it just goes downhill so quickly from there. So it's really like this exact thing is what's behind every habit. It's absolutely what's behind every case of anxiety. If you have chronic, long-standing, like, that doesn't even make sense, but I know that's people's experience, right? It's like I've been struggling with anxiety for decades, for years. Thought and feeling and emotion and high energy and all that, it moves through us. But when we pounce on that, and we don't do it on purpose, we just do it through a misunderstanding of how this works. When we say, oh my gosh, why did that happen? This is exactly how I can remember it, going down just like this for me. Oh my gosh, why did I feel that way? Why did I feel like I needed to rush out of the classroom? Now I'm thinking I need to sit by the door. Whoa, I really do have a problem. I need to sit by the door in every classroom. Before you know it, I wasn't leaving my house. It went from a feeling nothing, big deal, a feeling to a bunch of story and a bunch of thinking about it and a bunch of why questions that my mind would try to answer, and it's a mess. So I really, really hope this gives you a new way of seeing this. I know we say all the time that what shows up in our head isn't ours, it isn't meaningful, but I think people don't hear that. People don't really hear it, and I'm serious. Like, I literally, what shows up and gets paired in your head, it's not about you. It doesn't mean anything. I mean, it's not just a nice thing to help you feel better. It's really how we work. And imagine the freedom that could come from loosening that story and really seeing what I'm talking about here. So thank you for listening. I hope it's helpful to the anonymous woman in question, and hopefully it's helpful to many of you. I'll see you back here next week.